Welcome back. We're keeping an eye on the Sri Lankan rupee. That's after leftist candidate Anura Kumara Dissanayake won a tightly contested presidential election. He secured 5.74 million votes in the country's first ever runoff. Best known in Sri Lanka as AKD, Dissanayake campaigned on a platform of clean governance and combating corruption. He's also promised to renegotiate loan conditions under the country's IMF bailout. We'll also monitor Sri Lankan stocks once trading starts at the top of the hour. Now let's get reaction now from Dilshan Wirasekara, chairman of the Colombo Stock Exchange. Dilshan, good to have you with us. How concerned are you about this government change?
Hi, and thank you for having me. We are not concerned at all. I think the people have spoken. Sri Lanka has a very strong tradition of having a vibrant democracy. We are the oldest democracy in Asia. Changes of government have been a thing quite familiar to the public. Over the last 10 years, we've had 4 changes in government. But I must mention this has been one of the most peaceful elections that we've seen historically. The people have spoken. They've given a mandate to the new president-elect Anura Kumara Dissanayake. And from a market's point of view, we are quite confident that Sri Lanka will still continue on the growth trajectory and the recovery journey that it has been on for the last 24 months. So to answer your question, I am not concerned.
But the thing is, Dilshan, AKD is not a tested politician. Do you think that investors, international investors, may be concerned even if you're not?
So I think we'll have to wait and see in that respect. You would acknowledge that Sri Lanka for the last 2 years has been on a journey from default into recovery. So the foreign investment sentiment hasn't been great over the last 24 months because we are a country in restricted default as we speak. So I don't think that'll really have too much of an impact. If you look at market turnover levels, we've seen for the last 3 to 4 years, turnover being dominated by domestic investors. So even as we speak for this year, we have over 85% turnover being dominated by domestic players, and the foreign investors really playing a much smaller role in the market dynamics. So I don't think that there will be a great impact, but it's something that we will all have to wait and see.
What's been clear is that AKD wants to review that $3 billion IMF deal. This deal, some say, has been crucial to stabilizing the economy and could lead to further growth. What do you make of the possibility of that IMF deal being upended?
So I think just a clarification that even AKD did come a few weeks before election and clarify that his stance or his party's stance is not to cancel or not to revoke the IMF program, but only to renegotiate certain conditions of the program going forward. So I don't think we are facing a risk of revoking the IMF program. However, I think the new government may want to consider certain parameters, thresholds that have been agreed in going into the future. So no, I don't believe there's a risk of us cancelling the IMF program. I think it's pretty crucial that Sri Lanka sticks broadly to the reform pathway to the IMF program. And we expect the new president-elect and his party to broadly stay in line with the program. I think that has been categorically stated prior to the election because there was some uncertainty. So it's only that there may be a few parameters that may be renegotiated going forward. So I don't think we run a risk of a cancellation of the program.
But despite that, investors are nervous. They're looking out for policy signals. What are you hoping to hear in terms of policies?
So I think the markets really hope for consistency. The good thing is we've got a new president-elect who has a 5-year term. Going by what he has spoken of prior to the election, he will dissolve parliament and call for general elections. That could be held within a period of maybe 6 to 8 weeks. So going in probably to the end of the year, we would have general elections also completed, and then hopefully a government that has a full 5-year term. So I think having consistency in policy for a 5-year cycle is important. We have not had that for the last 10 years due to changes in governments and changes in policy. So I think from a market's perspective, we all hope that we will have consistency in policy for the next 5 years. And the president-elect has a very good chance of now building upon this success to form a government and then govern the country with policy consistency for the next 5 years. So that's what markets are hoping for.
Right. Dilshan, talk to us about foreign activity in Sri Lanka. We know that back in 2018, it was a 50-50 contribution in terms of local and foreign. When do you expect to see that again?
Sooner than later, I hope so. But you're quite right. I think if you look 2018 to prior, even if you go back 10, 15 years prior to that date, we've historically had a 50-50 contribution from a foreign and domestic point of view on turnover. However, after the 2019 April bombings, COVID thereafter, that dynamic changed quite a bit because a lot of the foreign investors pulled out of the country over macro concerns. And we've had, I think, in 2021, turnovers dominated 95% by domestic players and only 5% foreign. That trend has slowly but surely recovered. Like I said, we currently stand at about 85-15. So we've seen increased activity in foreign investment flows over the last year, 18 months or so. However, definitely not back to the levels of 50-50. I think partly the reason for that is that we are a country in restricted default status. So you're not going to have foreign funds, portfolio managers being able to allocate investment flows to the country when it's in RD status. Now, I think one thing the president-elect inherits as he comes in is that we have completed the debt restructure, both domestic debt as well as foreign debt, with last week the government announcing reaching finalization or agreement in principle with the international sovereign bond holders or the commercial creditors. So that completes the entire restructure process. We believe that this would give the incoming president added advantage because he's inheriting a government that has now cleared itself from default and hopefully very soon thereafter gaining a rating upgrade.
You're
we
painting
believe that
an optimistic view of the country, Dilshan. How optimistic are you the country can get to 3 to 5% this year?
Very optimistic. We've recorded 5% growth for the first 6 months. I have no doubt that we will continue in that path and we will reach 4 to 5% positive growth for 2024.
Dilshan, thank you so much for being with us. Dilshan Wirasekara, Chairman at Colombo Stock Exchange. Plenty more to come. This is Bloomberg.